All right, we'll get started here in a couple of minutes. The meeting is being recorded. And everybody got quiet. Hello, hello. Hi, Kelly. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
We'll get started here in just a minute. All right, it's 3 o'clock. I appreciate everyone joining this quick introduction about high school aviation courses available in Kansas. Uh, we do have a little bit of an introduction to go over. However, our Kansas Department of Education representative has another commitment, so we'll try to get him started. And that way he can go over high school courses and go over high level how schools can sign up for these courses. So with that said, Kevin, take it away.
Yeah. So every year we review our course competencies and career pathway cluster information, and we just kind of did that this last year or this last fall winter. We currently, I'm going to share this screen if it's okay. This is kind of what it looked like before we got started. With the courses, it's an aviation maintenance pathway. There is a sprinkle or two of courses of a drone course and a flight training course that was in there. But as we went through it and kind of looking at when we review these pathways, they have to link up to what's called our Kansas labor market needs. We look at a lot of information. We look at our Kansas labor market of information data. We look at Kansas Commerce. We look at the Kansas Board of Regents, the program alignment information that they come across, and we look at that stuff. So there's a lot of information we kind of go over. When we looked at that course, that pathway, there was some stuff in there that was more manufacturing related, and we kind of pulled some of that out. I know that Ray was on that team, Monty and James and several others. I think Joni was a part of that group that helped review this information. Now, we wanted to talk a little bit about the operation piece, but we were really looking at how can we zero in on the operations, but there just isn't the statistics or labor market information needed for the state of Kansas in aviation, because a lot of it, those people or those individuals go on to regional carriers and are not staying in Kansas. I know that we have a lot of, private pilot instructors and stuff like that. They might be graduate students and they're private pilot instructors for a couple of years until they get their hours and they move on. But we just don't have the recorded data from labor showing that we're needing pilots. But we do have some courses still sprinkled in here. One I want to point out is that we do have that drone course, that small uncrewed aircraft systems course that's in there. And then we did a lot of work on this pilot operations, and the course that was in there was called flight training course, which there wasn't a lot of students utilizing it anyways. I think there was like a handful of students through the state of Kansas that actually took that course. That course can be pretty expensive if you're talking about a high school offering because of the cost that's involved in that. But I know that Ray and James and Monty did a lot of work to pull this together. This course called Private Pilot Ground School course, those competencies now zero in on helping students to prepare to take that private pilot ground school test. That course then leads into that student getting that test. It's just the written test only. And the reason why we was able to kind of leave this in here, since it's kind of related to FAA regulations, is that when you're working on a plane, when the aviation maintenance, we have a lot of aviation maintenance technicians in the state of Kansas, throughout the Wichita, Salina, Kansas City area, that you still have to have some understanding of FAA regulations. So that was able to be left in here. If it wasn't, we had to figure out, because when we zero in these courses, this technical level course and these application level courses are funded with 0.5 state dollars to high school programs, and those state dollars have to be utilized for high wage, high in demand, high skilled technical jobs. And if they're not in demand, they don't like to see state dollars being utilized for areas that are not of need. So that's a big controversy, because there's a lot of other programs that are being pulled, or courses that are not being utilized anymore because they just don't have the need. So we had to really figure out a way to kind of like, you want to try to stand your ground, but you have to like give and take a little bit. And this is what we had to come up with on the give and take portion of this. So I'm still kind of happy with what we come out with. We've got a good basic level here with the private pilot ground school. If students want to go on and do pilot training, they still can at the post-secondary level or on their own, but at least at the high school level, as a for cost-wise for a school district, the only cost involved in this would be the student taking the exam fee. So this would be a little bit more cost effective for school districts. So I know that there was some questions. I think Ray brought it up to me. It was a question of, can these be taught by private schools, faith-based programs, homeschool programs? These are state pathways. So therefore, we're talking about accredited school programs. And with state dollars go to states, institutions, of school programs. So if it's a private school or faith-based program, they probably don't get state dollars, because those dollars coming from into a private school are usually donor generated or tuition driven. So they don't really get the state dollars for those courses. So could they still offer them? They could. They're just not getting the state dollars to help fund that course like they would. So they don't have to go through a process through me. Through me, most school districts have to create what's called a pathway application system. In that pathway application system, they send it to me every year as a new application or a maintenance application. They have to have at least one course in each level. They have to have a total mandatory of 3 courses, 3 credits. So if you had 2 half credits and then another credit at the technical level, another credit at the application level, you have to have at least a mandatory of 3 total credits. There is sometimes requirements that you have to choose certain particular courses within here, and I think they took out some of those requirements, but those are the things that they have to send to me every year, in addition to their goals and objectives that they're going to try to complete. They also have to talk about who's on their advisory committee, because they have to have an advisory committee that meets at least twice a year to review their course competencies and direction at the local level to see what might be needed, because sometimes those advisory partners look at their program and realize that they need some upgrade in technology or upgrade in curriculum or upgrade in facilities. And those recommendations by their local advisory boards should be taken to their local school board to say, hey, this is what my advisory committee is saying. We need to look at making some changes, and that those are specified in their goals, and all that stuff is sent to me every year. The pathway application system, this is still a draft. It was presented to our state advisory board in April. They will be voting on it to approve it on June the 5th. We will be presenting it to our state board of education members in the June meeting. I think June, look at my calendar here. I think it's June the 10th or the 11th. That will be a receive item only. They'll be just hearing from us, and then they get to go home and look it over and think about it, and then they will be voting on it in July. So then it'll become official once they vote on it in July after they've had a few Q&As or some information. So then this becomes live. Once it becomes live and it's official, pathway applications open up in November 15th, and local school districts then have until March 1st to submit their pathway applications. That is the process that we go through. Once the March 1st deadline hits, I've approved their pathway, then we'll know, you'll have an idea after that what schools will be offering those courses and what, also which school districts are offering that particular pathway. Any questions about this or anything else from the state level?
Kevin, there's one question, and I think Jenna's helping out or getting some clarification. So there's a question from Lisa. Could we offer this course only at the community college level? And further clarification from Jenna, are you meaning offer the class for concurrent credit
Yeah.
So if you
If
have
it's a
KBR approved program, yes, this is an alignment for this. So yeah, feel free to discuss that a little bit more. We do have a ton of community colleges. We'd love to get more that are able to get aviation programming, and we'd love to be a resource for building that out in the community colleges.
Yes, so you can offer these courses at the local level, just at the local level only. You could also offer it as a dual credit, but obviously, if most people at the local school district as a dual credit, that instructor has to be a qualified instructor, which usually for most people has to have a master's or more in that particular subject area. Or you can do it dual credit through through the Excel and CTE. And most of you, if you don't know what's Excel, that is a instead of getting the 0.5 state dollars through us to the school districts, what it is, it's dollars that are through the Kansas Board of Regents. So if they take that course through like WSU Tech or Cloud County Community College or Salina Technical Campus or the K-State at Salina, that the dollars go there to help provide tuition-free assistance to that student to take it while they're in high school. So a kid could basically, go across the street, take that course through that campus, and get it free. When I say free, the tuition is free. If there's any fees associated with it, the student has to pay the fees, but they could take it as a dual credit through a post-secondary institution. If there's any fees associated with it, and school districts like, well, sometimes you have these kids that are just coming from a low social economic status and they don't have the funds for that. Figuring out a way to help offset those funds for those kids, those students that can't afford that, could be a challenge. It's mainly just figuring out how to make sure that that student can still be able to participate, either through some local funds or if it's like they have to have safety glasses or lab coat or whatever it is, maybe it's something that's a piece of equipment. Those things could be purchased at the local school district, and then they just check them out and check them in type thing, so the student has opportunity to utilize particular equipment, and then they wouldn't have to purchase that on their own.
So
But yes,
right now there are, and I'm sorry to butt in. So there are some community colleges that offer WSU Tech is on the call right now and may be able to help you through the process. Those communities that are within that drive of those community colleges that have an amazing resource. I would absolutely love for more community colleges throughout the state, especially in our rural communities, to look into that and look into starting an aviation program and continue that conversation with the Department of Education and the Board of Regents. Kelly, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question because I'm not familiar with Kansas terminology yet. In your chart here, credit, where it's 0.5 or 1,
yeah,
what is that? based on? Is that like 0.5 is a 1 semester course?
Yeah, 1 semester course. And so therefore we speak a different language because we're talking about semester and full year courses. Normally you're talking high school course language of you have to have a semester of this or a year of English or a year of math.
Sure.
So therefore we look at the course. If you take the course, that 1 credit course, for example,
Like
I
aircraft
don't know,
system.
aircraft systems is 1 credit, but you probably could get all of those competencies covered in a 3 credit hour course at the post-secondary institution. So you probably could
Right.
hypothetically cover the entire content of those course
Well,
competencies in a
so
semester at the post-secondary institution.
is that based on like if you met the same schedule every day, like a 1 hour class, 5 days a week
Yeah.
for
Well,
okay.
for us, it's 1 credit, but it's because we feel that the competencies, we know that as a high school instructors and stuff, if you've ever been in a high school lately, that sometimes, even though they meet 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that sometimes you have, you think about the first 5-10 minutes of getting kids to get in, sit down,
Oh
and
yeah.
get your books, and then you got the last 5 minutes to wrap up, and so the amount of actual instruction time in a 1 credit course differs across the state, and so that's why when we say 1 credit course, those course competencies across you're spreading them out throughout the year, but that's because it's taking that much amount of time to cover them all, just because of
Sure.
the nature of the students. And sometimes you're also dealing with across, I want to say, various areas of development. So you have some
Sure.
different stages of development. So some will take
Okay.
just a little longer to get mastery of content versus some others.
Okay.
So that's why we speak in year credit or semester credit versus what post-secondary speaks in.
No, that's great. Thank you. I was just trying to translate that to what I do, and it makes perfect sense. So thank you.
Dirk, you've been going back and forth on the chat. You have your hand up. Anything further you'd like to discuss?
Sure. So this is Austin Krudna and Dirk Becker. We're both flight instructors out of Great Bend, Kansas. And I also work with the high schools, have done several presentations for them, had multiple high school students come through our program. And I teach with Barton Community College for a private pilot online ground school. And so I was just seeing what I can do to basically integrate what I've done with the college in with the public school district and try to get more people in the western central Kansas area back in the air. Because a lot of I don't want to say the old timers, but a lot of the old timers are kind of going out, and I'm trying to bring up the next generation there.
So Ray, I can feel that. You don't
Go ahead,
mind?
sir.
So Dirk, nice to meet you. Jim Hall, WSU Tech, and we're going to talk about some curriculum options here in a minute, but I'm going to give you the short answer. What you are teaching for your online ground school shares the same competencies as the high school pilot course that you see on here. So we'll give you some options and hear in a little bit about how to tie in with your local school district and college to help you out with that. But I'll give you the short answer.
Any questions from the K through 12 regarding high school implementation, how to sign up, any additional requirements? We'll go over some additional info, but while we have the Department of Education, Kevin here, we'd love to answer those questions if at all possible. We will include contact information for everyone after the call, so you'll be able to email, reach out with any additional questions. But please feel free to chime in. Anything else?
You guys want to, if you're looking at licensed personnel, sometimes at the district level, you have to have a particular license. At the high school level, college level, I'm sure the same way. You have to have a particular qualification when it comes to that the High Learning Commission who's teaching what at the high school level, having an accredited person or licensed personnel. If you don't have a teaching degree or something like that, there's other ways around it through a CTE specialized certification, things like that. You just have to reach out to the local school district to say, hey, I'm interested in helping you offer this course. They would need to reach out to our licensing department to make sure you can be a licensed personnel to teach that course. Because sometimes if we have people like in welding or other high level, high skill, in demand jobs that if they've been on the job for 5+ more years, just because they don't have a teaching degree, they can get a specialized certificate and teach welding because obviously they've had enough years of experience that they probably can still teach that course.
Dirk, you still have your hand up. Did you just want to put it down, or is there something else you wanted to?
No, I didn't realize it was still up.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on, Kevin. Please feel free to take off whenever you need,
Thank you.
or thank you very much, and we'll see you June the 3rd. There will be another meeting on the 3rd covering the same information, so feel free to reach out to others that you want to share this info with. We'll also record this meeting and make the link available afterwards as well. Thank you very much, Kevin. Go ahead and share my screen here real quick and start. This is what I intended to go over at the beginning of the meeting, but again, I wanted to jump right in. Meeting is being recorded, a little late after the fact now. So use chat and unmute. You guys have done all that. And then all the resources will be passed out shortly after the meeting, including presentations for those that wish to share the presentation, contact information, all that. Go over here. So very basic introduction, and the courses that that Kevin showed, I have linked in the presentation, so I'll be more than happy to, again, show that to you. Those are the courses that are currently being considered for 26-27, so you can take a look at those. And we'll go into more detail here into these specific courses, including potential curriculum options, teacher credentials, funding opportunities, and other resources. So when we say, aviation is a career, the first thing that we typically think about is, pilot careers and airline pilot careers, right? But there are literally dozens, if not hundreds of other flying specific careers, from cargo to corporate to charter, air ambulance, public safety. We have law enforcement that uses helicopters and aircraft for transport, but also search and rescue and multiple other careers. Flight instruction, I think, is the most important one that we have on the list because we need more flight instructors to be able to instruct. Right now, we have a flight instructor shortage nationally. And, as soon as a flight instructor gets enough hours, they typically run to an airline. We don't have those career flight instructors like we used to. So I think it's a very, very important one. Aerial applicators for firefighting and for crop dusting and sightseeing. There's a ton of commercial application, private usage of aircraft. And there's anything that you see on that side for, commercial aviation, you'll also have those same requirements for military aviation as well. We are desperately needing military pilots. If we don't have enough pilots to fly a commercial jet, a commercial airliner, then our flight might be delayed or canceled. But if we don't have enough pilots for the military, then it's national security implications. So kind of consider what we're talking about, not just for an airline pilot career, but all these courses give the fundamentals needed for a lot of various careers. So aviation as a career can also include maintenance. Obviously, we need to maintain aircraft that pilots break, right? So, and there's multiple aviation maintenance specialties. There's airframe and power plant. The airframe can be metal, it could be fabric, it could be wood, it could be composites or exotic materials, and that all takes a different skill set. The power plant portion, the aircraft engine can be electric, it could be a turboprop or a jet engine, or it could be a hybrid. And electric and hybrid are starting to come onto the market right now. So we need to change our skill set or improve our skill set. If you take a look at these aircraft pictures that I have, on the right-hand side, at top right-hand corner, you'll see an aircraft with what we call the old steam gauges. There's, thousands of these still flying around, right? Below that is a glass cockpit or computer screens. These two aircraft require a different skill set to maintain, a different skill set to fly. Obviously, a little bit of flight instruction and you can get that skill set. Take a look at the aircraft to the left of that. We have an old J3 Cub that's, fabric airplane, go low and slow and very fun. That is not the same thing as the Joby aircraft above it, which will again require a different skill set to fly and to maintain. The Joby is either full electric or electric hybrid and will require understanding of automation, of composites, of electric DC motors. So there's a lot of aviation to cover, and the courses that we're talking about are fundamental for a basic understanding for aviation in general. So they're not necessarily intended for just, this is a course for pilots and only pilots will be airline pilots. There's really a lot of underlying information that's vital for aviation in general. So avionics, inspection, there's rotor wing, fixed wing, lighter than air, powered lift now. Aviation as a career can also include the management of airports, of maintenance at airports, engineering. There's a ton of different careers. Air traffic control, manufacturing, engineering. The regulatory side are federal regulators. State regulators are have a very minimal role in the state as far as onerous regulations, but the FAA, we do, have that need as well. And then, of course, there's the military. So when we're talking about these courses, again, very important for underlying, and there's a lot of overlap in the information as well. So the private pilot ground school has a lot of overlap between that and the drone course. There's a lot of information that would be extremely valuable for someone wanting to go into aviation maintenance to get a lot of the, regulations out of the way. And Kevin mentioned previously that I know a lot of maintenance technicians that have to go for a test flight afterwards. So a lot of them are also licensed pilots. So if someone wants to go into one career field, that doesn't mean that it's exclusive into that. Aviation is also amazing for transportation. I'm a licensed pilot. I'm biased in that respect, but so, I normally throw this is a recycled presentation that I give to schools. What experience is required for training to fly an aircraft? Some of you may think you know the answer, but truthfully, none, depending on the aircraft, right? An ultralight, smaller aircraft doesn't have any pilot requirements. But for anything else, here are the pilot requirements. And take this with a grain of salt. There's a lot of nuance to this. You may be able to have less than 40-hour requirements depending on the program, the flight. If it's a flight school that has a curriculum, we won't go into a lot of details right now, but typically 40 hours is the minimum of flight training. National average likely around 60 to 70 hours of flight training. Part of that is solo, part of that is dual with an instructor. Have to be 16 years old to solo, 17 years old to actually get the pilot's license. You have to complete a written test. You have to complete a written test, and then after you get your hours, you take a flight test. What we're talking about for courses here is just the information needed to get the private pilot written test. So there is no flight training that is required. You could do, ground-based computer simulator training. You can get a flight sim, computer software and a yoke, and that's a really great way to introduce, concepts to youth without incurring a lot of expenses. You can also, we'll discuss the EAA Young Eagles program. I'm a product of that myself, so I'll discuss that here shortly. But for more advanced training, there's additional licenses. I won't go into the weeds with this, but there are additional requirements for depending on the type of flying. Minimum requirement, private pilot, really a great initial standard to look at. So we'll go the other way. What maintenance requirements are needed to maintain an airplane? You probably guessed this, but again, depending on the aircraft, if it's an ultralight aircraft, the smaller aircraft, none whatsoever. So if you feel like being a test pilot and a test maintenance technician, you go right on ahead. I wouldn't recommend it. For everything else, here are some of the requirements for licensing. So if you're building an aircraft, you build more than 50%, so 51% or more, you can apply to the FAA to be able to maintain that aircraft. There is also a smaller license for light sport aircraft. Not very common. They're smaller aircraft, and that's a stepping stone for some pilots. But for everything else, there's the airframe and power plant license, and then the additional inspector authorization or inspector authorized. Several options for A&P, and I'm not trying to steal anyone's thunder. I know you guys will go into details. I just wanted to make sure we covered the info. So if there is, there's options to get it through no school, through like apprenticeship, or if you want to work under a mechanic, that's what is required, time and experience. There's options with schools such as WSU Tech. You'll hear about that here shortly. And then there's also additional specialization for some of those other components that we discussed earlier. Let's talk a little bit about drones. When I say a drone, normally you think this little toy that you got for, your nephew got for Christmas. But drones can be, as small as, something really, you can hold in the palm of your hand, or they can be as big as a full-size aircraft. We have a few examples of that. In the top right-hand corner, that's a Pica Pelican. We saw a demonstration of that. That's intended to be an aerial applicator or a crop dusting aircraft, unmanned. They, intended for firefighting, aerial application. They also have some for cargo. The one below is currently in development by Textron, so it's intended to be cargo. There are, again, large applications and small applications. The next wave of aircraft, and why our conversation through the Department of Education in getting youth involved with aviation now is very important, is advanced air mobility. It's the next generation of aircraft that are going to be electric or hybrid, incorporate a lot of automation, maybe either crewed or uncrewed. And these are, again, next generation of aircraft that will require a special skill set to fly, a special skill set to maintain, a special skill set to manufacture and service. So if we do not get aviation into our local high schools now and develop those skill sets that are needed within the coming decade or two, Kansas will miss out on a ton of opportunity in the future. So it's very cool things happening, but we wanted to make sure that we get this information out and get our kids interested in this. So same question, what do you need to fly a drone? That's actually requiring a lot of nuance. I won't bore you with the details. You'll get this information, but it's not a straightforward answer. It depends on how big and what you're doing with it. Kansas use cases enabled, whether we're talking about drones or advanced air mobility or aircraft, there is a real need within Kansas. We don't just have, an air transport pilot need in Kansas. We have a ton of other uses as well. So for curriculum options, we'll discuss those here shortly. I do have links in this sheet as well. These are not all inclusive. There's a ton of curriculum options out there. For teacher credentials, I also have this information, so you will see some of those requirements. I'm biased. I used to be an airport manager. I absolutely love the full immersion educational opportunity where youth come out to the airport to learn about aviation. And that way, if there's a lesson that you wanted to go over, I can talk to them in a classroom setting all day long about airports and lighting and signage and all of that, or I can take them very easily out to an airport and show them all of those components. And I can talk to them about careers in aviation, or we can see a jet that comes in and we can talk to that pilot about those types of opportunities and why they chose that and what they do and how they got all that, how they got into the industry. So I am a big believer in full immersion. So I would really suggest that you include the local airport as much as possible, if not every day, for have the aviation classes at the airport if at all possible. Then at least include a lab component, because airports offer a fully immersive dynamic environment that is just rather engaging, and it's what our next generation really needs, and it grabs their attention. So again, a lot of resources for the pilot, the ground school course. Teacher credentials are needed in order to have that student be able to take the FAA written test. So a teacher either has to be a flight instructor, a ground instructor, or that student has to be signed off by a flight instructor or a ground instructor to take the private pilot written test. So if the teacher wants to go over the curriculum and just give the information to the student, and the end goal of the student is not to get the private pilot written test, you don't need any additional certification or credentials. However, the ultimate goal is to get them to be able to sit for that private pilot, that first step towards getting an actual pilot's license. For maintenance, again, looking at Choose Aerospace, that will that will be discussed with you shortly. Teacher credentials are really, there are no teacher credentials required outside, any additional teacher credentials, I would say, outside of what you already have. However, ideally, these courses, it would be great if they're specifically taught by a maintenance technician or a shop that is nearby within your community. So if at all possible, make these connections. I did include the community college on every single one of these. We had a community college question before. I would implore any community college that's interested in getting aviation courses, let's start that conversation. Let's see how we can get you to that point, because that's truly how you will serve the needs of your community and be able to get some kind of meaningful funding for your training. There are some additional funding opportunities that we'll discuss shortly. At this point, I think I've bored you guys enough with some of this information. You'll get it. Jim, if you don't mind, do you want to go ahead and discuss the maintenance portion? And then we'll go a little bit deeper into the maintenance. And if you want to take flight, and then KS, you can discuss the drone and flight as well.
So yeah, hey Ray, thanks for that. I'm going to go ahead and let Jenna come on, and we have a short presentation to kind of give you a highlight of how the high school process really works, and then we'll get into the details for each program.
Fantastic.
Hi everyone. I asked the question in the chat of who all here is representing a school district versus industry, some of those things. Just to get a good idea of who the audience is. One of the first things I wanted to kind of point out before we get too far into it, there were also changes made to the aviation production pathway. So if you're looking at some kind of both sides of the house when it comes to aviation and manufacturing and operations and flight, there's a lot out there for students. So definitely go out there and check the KSDE CTE pathways information so that you have access to all of that. Some of the biggest things when it comes to our school partners, when we've worked with them, we've launched several of these programs like the Aviation Maintenance General 1, 2, 3, and 4. Even though it hasn't been approved yet, we have schools still teaching it. So the difference is they're not receiving 0.5 funding, and instead they're receiving Excel and CTE funding through reimbursement with a partnership with us instead. And that's also in partnership with Choose Aerospace, who will come on here shortly to talk a little bit about that. And that's one of the things to consider as you're going through this process as a school district. Yes, there's the 0.5 funding option, but there's also the Excel and CTE funding if you're working with a post-secondary partner that will bring in resources to assist in that aspect of it. So those are some of the big pieces with that. When you're looking at this AMT pathway, and we're going through it on this site, going through it. As we get into general, you'll notice they're all a half credit, and that was intended because they can be taught as an 8-week format or a 16-week, depending on how your school district does their bell schedule. There are 4x4s and 7-hour days and rotating blocks, all sorts of different options out there that schools are utilizing. So this would allow you to, if you're a school that has a 4x4, you'd be able to teach these classes in an 8-week, an 8-week, an 8-week, and an 8-week. So they'd be done in a year without having to double block. Wellington High School was one of the first high schools that we worked with to launch the aviation maintenance courses and that is the format that they chose to do. They double blocked it. And chose this pathway with it. So the first year that they launched, they actually missed the deadline to be able to submit it as a pathway option, even just with our old maintenance pathway. So they just instead opted for the Excel and CTE funding that came out of that for use within their school. Mr. Kevin didn't go over the process and timeline, but that is available through the handbooks on the KSD CTE website. So if you're familiar with all of that, which I'm going to guess if you're working in a district doing some of that, you probably are. But if you're not, feel free to reach out afterwards. I know Ray's going to send information. So that's just a very quick and broad overview of that aspect of it. As students are going through. So a lot of our schools have pushed down introductory level courses into the 8th grade level or so, which is totally fine. It's just making sure that as they get into their freshman and sophomore year, there's still opportunities being built in that would make sense for them. The aviation classes would be one that you'd really want to launch for your juniors and seniors more so that they can launch quickly into actually utilizing those skills versus having to take a year off with it. And that's another piece when you're working on changing those around to factor that piece in as far as pacing guides with all of that. So any questions on that part? Oh, Kevin's still here. Okay, great. So Jim, did you want to add any more on with the aviation pathway piece? For maintenance operations?
Yeah, I think Jenna. There is. So a couple of things that I think is worth discussing here. While our goal and our outcome, and this was done by an entire committee, and a lot of these folks are here are here today. So Monty, Kevin, Ray, our folks from the FAA and a few other folks went into, when we did the pathway revision, we really looked at what can we do to prepare the students for their job market. And with that in mind, we did as much as we could to get them college level skills at the high school level, but with things that could be taught by a high school instructor. So if you will look on the technical level classes here, the courses that are offered in those technical level classes do not require any special training for high school instructors. They are, any instructor is qualified to train those. Now, we do offer a training program in the summer that's free of charge. If a person would like to come and skill up on anything that's done on the technical level. Then when we get down to the application level, there's a number of different things that you can do here. So Dirk, we talked about the private pilot ground school being the same as what is done that you do online. For the high school program, it doesn't require a flight instructor, but in order for the students to be signed off, it does require a CFI to sign off on their competencies to do that. So you can choose to do it either as a certified or a non-certified course, and that would be up to each of the individual school district. I would highly encourage you to do it with someone who's a CFI that can sign those students off so they can go do those written tests. But there is no actual requirement written into it. And then we get to the AMT
Can
general.
I stop real quick? Sorry, before you jump into that part of it, to fold into that, Dirk, real quick. One of the things for Excel and CTE, the pilot program initially was not one that was excluded from Excel and CTE as an option. So you have to actually actively opt in for the request for the ground school to count. So that form that I put in the chat is some of the information on how that works. And it goes, you have to submit that back to KBOR for your classes to count through Barton for Excel and CTE credit, which then it would allow you to either drop the cost completely or at least dramatically lessen what you would charge a high school student for for those courses. So just a heads up on that. I tried to give you as much information as I could in the chat for that side.
I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Jenna. And so then the next part that we go into is we look at the AMT general courses. Those are designed you can utilize the Choose Aerospace curriculum, which does not require a certified instructor to teach that. I'm going to let Kelly talk about that here in just a little bit because he is the expert on that, but it's really designed so that anybody can do it. The one we do a dual enrollment course for Choose Aerospace, and our first instructor was a librarian. He's doing a wonderful job. But we do offer training along with that. So the idea behind this is that we could train you if needed, so you didn't require a special instructor to do that. We do the same thing with UAS. So we offer a summer course in UAS for a training in the pathway courses, as well as anything in aviation fundamentals, aircraft systems, and hand and power tools. Next summer, we plan to offer a private pilot ground school training for high school instructors as well. So hopefully that answers some of those questions.
One thing that often happens in regards to students that are wanting to go into a career field or wanting to go into aviation maintenance is they very quickly get pigeonholed into one thing or another. You only get to do this one very, very specific thing. And so as you delve into this more, and we'll make sure that you have access to this too, these are just a small number of careers that students can go into. And these are all still very aviation specific. Students coming out of WSU Tech's aviation maintenance program, yes, they go into these fields, but they also go into things like some of our students have gone on to work with NASCAR. Some of them have gone on to work for at the theme parks to work on roller coaster engines and some of those pieces too. You gain a skill set and a knowledge in the work that you do that lends itself across the board for being more mechanically inclined. So the options are really pretty broad. And so that's one of the biggest pieces of misinformation or lack of information that we often have to dispel early on for those interested in these career paths. So this is, again, just more resource for you as we move forward that we'll send out to you and so that you'll have access to all of that information. Does anyone have questions on this side? Okay. Our next one is on unmanned aircraft systems. Monty, do you want to start us out, or that sound good? Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. I'll just highlight a couple of quick items here and indicate that one of the interesting and fantastic things about unmanned aircraft drone systems is how compatible these particular programs are to bring into the school setting. The accessibility of both the technology, but also the curriculum and instructional side of the UAS side is something that can be scalable just about to any level of school district, any size of school district, and even those school districts that find themselves a little bit challenged in terms of whether it's adult support resources, budgeting, and other kinds of things. This is truly an area in the aviation educational space that is a realistic way for your school to get involved in this. Some of the other areas of maintenance and private pilot may take a little bit of time to build up and provide that capacity, but the UAS drone side of things clearly is a good place to start and can be scalable in that K-12 area. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this is, especially just as like Jenna and James were saying, we've got a lot of great programs where we're trying to support KSDE licensed teachers or even our private school teacher partners, trying to help them figure out a way to get the skills and knowledge to be able to adequately lead these kinds of courses. So we too have some teacher pipeline programs that help train for these kinds of experiences and can get you to a point where some dual credit type of opportunities are available in other scenarios as well. The last thing that I just wanted to point out, what's really exciting to me about the small uncrewed aircraft model is the opportunity for collaboration across your school building and across your district. If you think about the different ways in which drones can be built into and collaboratively assigned with other programs in your educational areas, the opportunities there are pretty fantastic. We've had some conversations, for instance, with our friends over in the agriculture education and FFA side of programming. And we've talked to them, of course, about those applications for drone flight services, applications towards agriculture, and how could we help their ag education students start to see this as a really a viable place for them to gain expertise and some experience. Well, you can take that same concept and bring that to your digital media pathway people. You may have a law and public safety enforcement type of pathway, same type of thing. And clearly also anything in the applied engineering, robotics side of your programming. These are teachers and programs that I think there's some natural connections that could be made. They don't have to be long-term major types of projects. Maybe they're short intervals, ways in which you can do some collaborative work across the hallway, so to speak, and work with your colleagues in your own school district to build out aviation education, not only just in a really specific place, but across your entire educational platform. And that's a really exciting opportunity there, I think. So again, the UAS program or course that's been designed into this pathway is just a 0.5 semester. It is primarily identifying the remote pilot certificate competencies to get students so that they can complete that examination, be certified for commercial pilot, and actually take this as a true industry credential. Can walk out and I can be hired to do this kind of work and it's legal. And I think that's a really unique opportunity, again, when you've got 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who can walk out the door with that kind of a credential in the back pocket and see that on an application, whether that's for scholarship, college application, or employment. So excited to work with all of you on this and happy to continue to discuss future efforts towards offering this work in your school.
One of the interesting pieces with several of the schools that we have concurrent programs with for drones in Kansas are there faculty that are actually being trained or cross-training for this aren't necessarily the traditional CTE teacher or in manufacturing necessarily. We have a lot of business teachers that do it. When you think of things like real estate and drones and insurance and some of those pieces, so it has some cross applications there, as well as in the filmmaking, digital marketing, those aspects of it as well. So lots of different ways to approach it. And it's sometimes exciting for those teachers to be able to add some of the more hands-on opportunities in their classrooms for students too. So we found them to be some of the more excited and engaged in that regard. So.
Jenna, real quick, if you don't mind me jumping in, this is something that I talked to Monty about and with K-State specifically. But in the past, there was a participation in a drone racing league effort. I would absolutely love to see a ton of schools really excited about doing that. So if schools sign up for the drone program, I'd love to see a ton of Kansas schools competing in drone racing. I think it's a really engaging opportunity. It's fun for the kids and it's also very educational. So
I love it too, right? How much KDOT monies are going to be to do that with?
I'm working on that. So I am working on that.
Hey, we've only got about 10 minutes left. Kelly has been waiting patiently to talk about Choose Aerospace and that curriculum. So if you don't mind, can we kick it over to him?
Absolutely.
Kelly, do you have your own slides or do you want this one up?
Oh, that looks great right there.
Okay.
You bet. That'll work. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Filgo. I am the Director of Operations for Choose Aerospace. We are working very closely with Jim and his team at WSU Tech to get into Kansas high schools, and we're very excited about that. We appreciate all the work that he's doing for me that I don't have to do. So he's got people on the ground doing that work, and I believe one of his staff is in one of these windows. Jess is back there somewhere. I think I saw earlier. Hi, Jess. So here's what Choose Aerospace does. We take what is typically taught in a first semester at an A&P school, very much like WSU Tech, and we take that that content, and we bring it down into the high school, and we teach it over typically 2 years, one course at a time, rather than like at a school where I used to teach here in Central Texas, where we would do 6 courses at a time, and we get all that content done in 15 weeks, and we had a very high washout rate. Young people transitioning from high school into a technical college or a community college or even a 4-year school aren't always ready for that pace. And I saw plenty of students who I felt would have made great mechanics, that just sort of panicked at that moment and ran out the door. So our industry is desperate for new talent. It is a real problem. And I heard someone earlier mention, national security threat as well. So the same thing goes. A lot of our military maintainers are actually civilians. So as they also need to keep those planes flying. So Choose Aerospace's approach is we take that content that is sort of push some students out of the classroom because of the hectic, crazy pace, and we spread it out over 2 years in high school, give them a chance to get their head around it, give them a chance to understand it, give them a chance to enjoy it and have fun with it while they're doing this, while they're doing all their other stuff in high school as well. So what they're doing is taking a little extra time to get the exact same content before they graduate from high school, and then they can matriculate up to a school like WSU Tech and get started in what is normally the second semester of a program. And there's a couple with, not only is that a benefit for the students, it's also a benefit for those A&P schools, because one of our challenges was we didn't ever have a problem getting people in the front door. But by the time we got to the last semester through attrition, we had lost a lot of students that are some empty seats. So if I can, at Choose Aerospace, hand over a student who's already self-selected that they're really excited and they want to be here, they had a chance to get out before they ever showed up at the college. Now they can go in, and Jim knows they're going to sit in his seat all the way through, and he's going to get a productive student. Another pathway for our students in Choose Aerospace is to go direct to work. So they can go through Choose Aerospace in high school, get a certain set of competencies that are defined by the FAA. We're using the exact same airman certification standards for general subjects in the A&P world that the Part 147 school does. So a student can go through Choose Aerospace and be very well qualified for an entry level or a back shop job, or whatever, sort of that introduction to going direct to work. And as was pointed out earlier, that is a pathway to getting an A&P certificate as well. So that students have options when they get out. They can go to school, they go straight to work, and we're helping them get that sort of decided and getting that content done while they're in high school, so that when they hit that stage of graduation, they've got some really good options to go out and get involved in a fantastic career that's not only going to change their life or their future family's life, it's going to change the communities around them, because they're going to be a great, productive member of their community. That's our goal.
Awesome, Kelly. Thank you very much for sharing that. Any questions for Kelly with Choose Aerospace?
I'm happy to answer any questions, Choose Aerospace or otherwise, I guess. But yeah, we'll keep the Choose Aerospace.
Sorry, we shortchanged you there, Kelly.
I know, not a problem. So let me do this. Let me just pitch. My email address is very easy. It's Kelly, Kelly, at Choose Aerospace, spelled just like it says behind me. .org is our email address. Feel free to drop me a line. I'm happy to answer any questions. Of course, Jess with WSU Tech is also available to do that for you guys as well.
Sounds great. Thank you. We'll share that information. And I second, or I shortchanged someone else as well. AOPA, Dan or Nikki or Tom, are you guys on? If you would, please jump in. Again, apologize for shortchanging you, and I'll make it up to you somehow.
All right, Ray, thank you. Yeah, I will turn this into a 30-second elevator pitch for the curriculum. It's all good, no worries. I'm going to try to share here real quick and see if that comes up. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Excellent, great. So AOPA, the largest aviation community in the world, AOPA Foundation philanthropic arm designed to support and grow general aviation community. And one way that we do that is through our high school aviation STEM curriculum. So it encourages students to consider careers in aviation early, prepare them for future roles in airlines and aerospace engineering, air traffic control, and a whole lot more. The curriculum is industry recognized with stackable certifications and credentials that can help lead to jobs right out of the high school or get them on a fast track to be qualified and hireable sooner. We built our curriculum for teachers by teachers and pilots. So used our aviation expertise, the expertise of teachers to make sure that we're giving them everything they need to succeed in the classroom, but also adhere to modern teaching practices. The curriculum is rigorous. It's designed to meet national education standards, and that ensures quality and credibility, and it's comprehensive. It's turnkey, so it includes everything a teacher needs to succeed in the classroom, even if they don't have a background in aviation. Full-on lesson plans, presentations with embedded videos, teacher notes, hands-on student activities, assessments, rubrics, all designed to help the teacher focus on connecting with their students in the classroom instead of preparing. Maybe most important, free. Due to generous donations to the AOPA Foundation, we are able to provide this curriculum for free. Looks like a lot on here. It's designed as a 4-year high school course or structure, but it doesn't need to be executed that way. These grade level monikers are in parentheses there, but a school could choose to do just 9th or 9th and 10th or just the pilot pathway or just the drone pathway. There's a lot of options there. I think the key takeaway from this is that it's a full 4-year program, but it could be done in many different ways. And really the key goal here is once we get through grade 11, the students have gained all the aviation content knowledge they need to be able to take the written test for the FAA private or the UAS test, one step towards their 107 certification. So that's all of that in a nutshell. In addition, lots of CTE woven through the curriculum all the way through, but we've also developed a 1-semester course, could be standalone or in conjunction, that focuses on not just understanding how aviation works, but how to be a successful employee in aviation. Lots of information there we'd love to share. Just reach out to us and we'll get you going there. Key features, as you would expect, learning goals clearly defined, so everyone knows what we're doing. 5E lesson format, that's the standard of STEM education curriculum. We've done that. Everything the teacher needs is accessible through our online LMS, and it's more than just aviation content knowledge. There's CTE content in there. It helps prepare students for careers in aviation, aerospace, and national standards, of course, aligned to Common Core, next generation science standards, FAA, airman certification standards, and many state alignments that we can help with. Depth of knowledge lessons were designed with a focus on the DOK levels to make sure that we're addressing higher levels of learning. Talking through our pilot and our UAS pathways, 9, 10, 11, 12 of the pathway, but it's a great prep for Kelly's Choose Aerospace course. If you're interested in aviation, the 9th and 10th grades provide an incredible foundation to set them up for success with a career in maintenance as well as ATC. Great foundation through our 9th and 10th grade courses, and then dual enrollment or with a post-secondary ATC program is a great plan there. So it's not just pilot, it's pilot and just about anything else in general aviation, opening up the eyes and minds to students for the exciting and the rewarding and well-paying careers available in aviation. We're in 1,400 schools, serving nearly 30,000 students this year. A lot more information here to share, but great news for this upcoming school year. We have all documents received and are excited to have 5 schools from Kansas in there, and next year, in the next school year, it will be our first year with schools in all 50 states. So we are making our way and growing, and I'm sorry that I raced through this that quickly, but hopefully, if you have any questions, hopefully it gave you a general understanding. Reach out to us at hs@aopa.org. Also online is Nikki Nichols. She is our recruitment and retention person. Please feel free to reach out to Nikki with any information there. And with that, I will pass it back.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you,
Yeah, you're
Nikki. Tom is also on the line, Tom Chandler. If you guys have any questions about, AOPA or outreach, we'll have all of their emails and contact info afterwards. Again, sorry to shortchange you. I apologize, but hopefully we'll continue the conversation. I know we're after time here. We haven't had a chance to touch base with the FAA, any of our FAA partners on, and anything that you would like to share.
Hi, Ray, it's Carol. So I just want to touch base real quick on the FAA workforce development grants. Those have been put on hold temporarily. I'm a little unsure about where that's going to go for the future. We're just kind of waiting to hear some more information on that. But I will share there are other funding opportunities and grants available out there. You just kind of have to search around. But I do know Amazon Prime just put out a message on some drone scholarship programs that they have available. We also have NASAO, which is tailored more towards the college level, but NASAO has put out the Henry O scholarship. Women in Aviation will be putting their scholarships out, open, I believe, summer of 2025 here. EAA has a couple of flight training scholarships and a post-secondary scholarship. So, and AMA, the Academy of Model Aeronautics, also has scholarships available, but they also have several kits and training materials offered to actually K through 12 programs. So if there are any other districts that are interested in getting this started a little sooner. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Carol. I know your office is very amazing with sharing some of those, opportunities with me in particular. I'm sure you share them with other people. I know I'm not the only person in your email, but we send that information out to our email distribution lists. We also post it on our social media. So please watch out for our social media for these opportunities. And I'm sure that everyone else on this call, these stakeholders, do the same thing as well. So please make sure to follow their social media and feel free to reach out. We'll send the contact information again after this email, or excuse me, we'll email the contact after this meeting. So feel free to reach out to any one of us. We'll be more than happy to direct you. Consider aviation courses for your communities. They're a great way for community engagement. So airports should consider, working with your local schools. Make sure that you do those outreach activities. They're a great way to get your next generation into lucrative careers. A great way to attract attention to Kansas and maintain Kansas's, air capital title that we love to spout, but there's a lot of other states that are trying to take that away from us. So our skill set needs to improve, our opportunities need to increase. Thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to working with you, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you, guys.
I just wanted to thank you guys for putting this on before I headed out.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Ray, are you still recording?
I can, yeah, I need to end the event to stop recording.
Okay, let's have a chat later.
Okay.
Not now. I gotta go to a dinner. So
Will do. Thank you, sir.
see ya.